All right, well, I had a little fun at Mr. Farrell's expense that I think we should need to pass through. I get the impression you don't like long meetings, so squeeze through it.
We want to make sure we take care of all the business, so.
Okay. The first thing I want to do is just give you a quick update on the assessor's office and the progress towards closing the tax roll. Apparently they have, as of Monday, they had 480 parcels left for the detailed review and for factoring. It looks like at 15 parcels per day, they should be able to complete that by the 19th. So well on schedule. They are experiencing some computer problems, so it may go a little longer, but we've given them a 2-week extension if necessary. So.
What type of computer problems are we having? Is it with their software?
It's with PANS. And they're working with the company, but apparently there are some issues that they have to go in and enter a lot of data that normally they would just import.
Is that the state or is that us?
That is a contract with a private vendor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the PANS system is their computer operating.
I'm assuming PAMS is an acronym. And that's,
Yeah, I can't remember what it stands for.
I can't either.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, I just curious.
Yeah.
So it was actually
It's the appraisal software that they use. So to start with, I just want you to be aware of the breakout of the values in the state. We've got real property in the blue, in the red, personal property, green, motor vehicles, utilities, natural resources. What I want to draw your attention to is statewide, 11% of the value is in centrally assessed property. The significance of that is that's appraised by the state for free. You don't pay us to do it. And so it's free revenue, 11%. In your county, only 2% of your value comes from centrally assessed property, which means you bear a greater burden. You have to spend a little more to get the property appraised. The other thing that I want you to notice is the blue, the real property portion, a little over 3/4 of the state value is in real property. That's your homes and your businesses. That's where the bulk of the appraisal work goes. And it's time consuming because not only do you have to value every property every year using some kind of market analysis and some factoring that you apply in the computer, but you've got to visit at least 1/5 of your properties, not necessarily visit physically, but there's got to be some kind of inspection to verify measurements and retake photos and make sure that everything changes. Excuse me. Then you've got the new growth, which is all your new homes, new businesses that are built. Those are the most time consuming. You have to measure and sketch out properties. In your county, 93% of yours is real property. So again, you've got a greater burden than most counties. It's a little unfair.
I got a question. On the new construction, isn't there a way they can just go to the building department and pull up the plans and just use that as built?
Yeah, we've had some assessors try to do that. Typically, there's value information that they thought would be valuable, and it's typically not. It's pretty far off. The plans themselves, to go in and try to measure off of a plan and to get all those plans, at this point, it's still just way too much.
I think they do that now, some of the real large homes from the different. The danger there is you got to make an inspection to get a completion date. I've had cases where we've appraised properties off their plans and they never even started for some reason. We sent them a tax bill for a $100,000 home and they haven't even broke ground yet.
Our system's online now. All the plans are uploaded into the system, so it's really easy to see them digitally.
Yeah.
If you have a C of O, I'm just thinking.
I think that's something worth looking into, getting that information and then seeing how we can use it. And we're willing to coach the office.
And if they had to fill and verify some things,
Yeah.
all the dimensions would be right there and easy to pull off.
So we will be approaching you about the possibility of maybe doing some more of that kind of thing to lessen the amount of work that they do. If you were to break the real property into its categories, and blue is the primary residential, of course the homes that receive the primary exemption, 45% exemption. The red is the non-primary, which we call secondary homes, the cabins, the second and third and fourth homes, some of the wealthy have. And commercial industrial is in the green, and then green belt is the purple. Commercial property typically is about 1/4 of a county's value. In your county, then it represents a more complex appraisal process. Fortunately for you, you have less commercial to worry about, so you require less commercial staff for that. However, if you look at the red, the secondary, where most counties have about 10%, you have, and I guess I gotta go back and explain why it's even significant. Secondary properties, because they're not the typical subdivisions, cookie cutter plans, and so forth, where you can often reappraise in some counties, in some cases, 30 properties a day. These are spread out. Even if they're small, they're a little harder to get to, a little harder to understand what the value is going to be. And if they're large, then they're more complex, they're more custom, and so it's a more difficult appraisal process. Over half of your real property is in this more challenging type of property to appraise. So it's more time consuming and it requires better appraisers. And there's more administration time to administer the property or the primary exemption, because a lot of these second homeowners want to get the exemption that they're not entitled to, and so there's more administration involved. On a percentage basis, the percent of your total parcels, you and Summit County rank at the top, having the most proportion that are in secondary properties. And the actual number of parcels, even though you are about in the middle of the pack on number of parcels, you have the third highest number of actual secondary parcels to appraise. Summit and Washington County that have more than you, they each have one full-time employee administering the primary exemption. And you may not need that much, but a significant portion is going to be going for that. You also have the second highest average sales price in the state. The reason that's important for us in considering appraisers and how many we need and what kinds we need is those homes are typically more exotic materials that aren't found easily in costing materials or costing programs and that kind of thing. Custom construction, the footprints are more complex and so forth. Give a picture on that. So the high-end properties are going to be more time-consuming than in other counties. And the costing services that are available where you just take $1 per square foot and apply it, they're not really adequate to handle the high-end properties.
What was your number? Oh, there it is. It's there.
And so typically, we've seen this statewide. The higher-end properties are typically under-assessed in relation to the lower-end properties. The result is that it's unfair to the modest homeowners, because those higher properties that are under-assessed, the burden that they have on the taxes gets shifted to the people that own the lesser expensive properties. So to appraise these higher-end properties, we need a little bit more skilled appraisers as well as a little more time. Between 2004 and 2013, you experienced the highest growth in the state. I don't know, you probably are aware of most of this stuff I'm telling you, but to me, this is significant. You've got 44% increase over those years. And typically, along with that growth, there are going to be volatile markets. It's going to be way up, way down. I mean, when things go down, they go down. You remember that, of course. It's a challenging analysis. You've got to understand supply and demand. You've got to understand how this is going to impact value. You've got to be able to forecast somewhat, so that you're not only hitting this year's values, but you're kind of anticipating what's going to happen next year, so you don't end up having to have a big jump in 1 year and having taxpayers really angry. Higher skilled appraisers for that. The number of residential units that were built between 2010 and 2016 statewide increased by 9%. In your county, they increased more than double by 20%. And that means there's a lot more measuring and sketching, the most time-consuming part of the appraisal process. This is the number of parcels. See where you fit in the middle of the pack. I thought it would be good to compare you with some of the counties that have a similar number of parcels. San Pete, Tooele, Uinta, and Sevier. And how many appraisers do they have in their office? They've got 6, 5, 5, and 3. You currently have 4 appraisers. You've just hired or in the process of hiring another. That would be 5. Our goal for you is to have 6.
We've had 5 all the way along until the first of
January or so?
March, was it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For April, he left in April, last appraiser.
This is in addition to the elected
Yes. In some small counties, the assessor will actually be a full-time appraiser. But in most counties from about mid-size on up, there's so much other nitpicky stuff that goes on in running the office that they don't have much time to do that. But ideally, having an assessor appraise, that would be great.
So including the elected appraiser, we do have 6.
As far as, yeah.
You're not counting our elected appraiser in,
No.
in these numbers,
Not
correct?
in this, because my understanding is she doesn't do a significant portion of the appraisal work.
Well, isn't that equal in the other, those 6, 5, 5, and 3? Is that counting?
That doesn't count their...
That doesn't count their elected appraiser either. Okay, so we're apples to
In
apples.
Paiute County, they have one appraiser who is also the assessor.
Yeah.
So in several of these counties, the assessor does a significant portion of the appraisal work. If you could pull that off, that would be a benefit, obviously. So our goal would be 6, and this is appraisers, not including data collectors. If you have additional data collector or something like that, that's going to assist your county because you've got some complexities that others don't. Now, the International Association of Assessing Officers has done studies and come up with their standards of how many parcels should be assigned per appraiser. And if you look at how that parcels per appraiser show up in the state, there's quite a variety. Look at the longest blue bar there is Box Elder County. One appraiser is doing 11,000, or each appraiser is doing 11,000 parcels. That's a lot. I don't know how in the world they do it. It could be that they have a lot of desert, West Desert land and that kind of thing. I haven't looked at that in detail. But then you've got Grand County down near the bottom with the shortest one. Each appraiser is only responsible for a little over 2,000 parcels. So they have a little better situation. You're about in the middle of the pack. When we compare you to the IAAO standard, in fact, nobody meets that standard. And we don't think it's realistic. In fact,
What are those 3 lines? Is there 3 standards?
yes, the standard for large counties is 3,500 parcels per assessed per appraiser. They assume that there's some money for advanced technology and also the uniformity of the properties and that kind of thing. The middle of the road is 2,500, and in the smaller, they say about 1,500. If you were to meet that standard, you'd have to have more than 9 appraisers. And like I said, we don't think that's practical. We think you could do very well with 6 appraisers. Now also, to compare you, it's not just parcels. All parcels are not the same, so I decided to show you how you compare the kinds of parcels that each county has in a similar size. As far as primary residential, they're the easier residential to appraise because they're more similar and you have less of that, so you're a little disadvantaged. They can do the work faster in Tooele County and Uintah County. As far as Greenbelt, that's a little easier to appraise. It's land that's already got a value set by the state and so forth. You're at a disadvantage there. Santee has the most. Vacant land is something that goes a little faster, and so you're at a little bit of an advantage over Sevier and Uintah and Tooele. However, when you look at your land values, you and Tooele County have the highest land values, and that sometimes increases the complexity and slows you down a bit because you've got things like view and other adjustments that you have to consider and markets that are up and down. And then when you look at secondary residential, of course, you have far more than everybody else, which means you've got to take more time. You need more appraisers.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
I can understand that on the new growth where it's a brand new property, but
Right.
when you're reassessing properties that you've already assessed, don't you mostly have that information? You're just looking at the market adjustments?
Yeah, just imagine driving down the road and you've got, you know, just a very small rectangular shaped home and you're driving down the road. It's not too hard to verify things, get a new picture and that kind of thing, but you get up in some of these more complex properties. I mean, first of all, the actual view of the property, you're looking, it's just a little more time for that. But the real issue is studying the market and understanding how things are selling. And the homes are so different that the sales are just all over the board, and you've got to figure out what accounts for that difference. Is it the number of garages they have, 15 garages versus 2? Or is it, you know, just a lot of different things that you don't have to consider with other properties. So it's a challenge. But the new growth is by far the biggest part of it, because measuring those monstrous homes is a nightmare, indeed. So, let's look at the number of appraisers nationwide. I don't know if you're aware or not, this is something that in our business we're worried about. Since 2008, there's been a 26% decline in the number of real estate appraisers. In Utah, it's worse, 35% decline. Some of that is due to new requirements. They doubled the amount of education required and the amount of experience and so forth. That was part of it. But there's another issue that's going on. Some people might say, well, everything cycles. Real estate salesmen, the number of real estate brokers and so forth, that really cycles. My wife works in a testing center. We see she's seen a huge influx of real estate salespeople right now because the market's good for that. However, appraisers, because of the time it takes to become a licensed appraiser, those cycles just they can't catch up. By the time they get licensed, the market's down. So it's not something that we can really assume. It's going to be fairly steady. The job market right now, nationwide 4.4% unemployment rate, and in Utah 3.1%. That means it's a lot harder to hire, a lot harder to keep your employees. They're getting stolen away by other counties. So that tight job market makes it a little bit more challenging as well. If that decline that I just told you about continues for the next 5 years till 2022, that'll be a 37% decrease in the number of appraisers. And in Utah, it'll be a 54% decline. And when you think about this, the average age of an appraiser right now nationwide is 59 years old. That's my age. And I'm not going to be working much longer, I promise. So, and you can imagine with the baby boomer stuff going on and all that, imagine the retirements that are coming. So I can be pretty confident this trend is going to continue unless some major changes are made. And which licenses are we talking about mostly? So you know there are 3 different kinds of appraisal licenses. That's what I wanted to kind of point out here. And kind of compare them with a building inspector. I think a lot of people can relate to a building inspector. Building inspectors don't require any college. A licensed appraiser has to have 2 years of college. A certified residential or certified general has to have 4 years, either a degree or 4 years of college. In addition, there are specific classes that you have to take, appraisal classes. A building inspector has to have certain classes to pass their exams. A residential building inspector requires 48 hours of education. To be a combined residential and commercial inspector, 96 hours. Just to start counting your experience in appraisal, you have to have 75 hours of additional classroom education. To be licensed, 150, certified res 200, certified general 300. The minimum years of experience you have to have in addition to your education, so you're basically an intern under a supervisor. 2 years for a licensed appraiser, 3 for a certified residential, and 3.5 for a certified general. So overall, it's going to take you, to be a certified general appraiser is going to take you a minimum of 8 years, including your college. And a certified residential 7 years, licensed appraiser 4 years, whereas a building inspector, I'm sorry, it's not hunting season yet, so. A couple of months to get your education on the others. So those are the different kinds of licensure I just want you to be aware of. Nationwide, this is how they're allocated. And we would expect this allocation to just be constant. Almost have about 20% are licensed, about 50% are certified res, about 30% are certified general, but we see there's a decline in the licensed. These are the younger, less experienced appraisers. So this is showing us a pattern. It means there are fewer entering the field. When you look at the actual numbers of licenses in Utah, the red line indicates that, yeah, the licensed are declining, but the blue line, those are the trainees. The number of trainees is declining at a very rapid rate. We don't have people coming in to assume the jobs that are being vacated by retirees. So what that's going to mean is this was a demographic study done by the Appraisal Institute. They determined that the brand new appraisers coming into the field in their 20s and so forth represent only 1% of the total number of appraisers. So I guess the bottom line, I just want to help you understand that right now it's going to be a little bit difficult to hire and retain appraisers, and be looking for ways to keep them is probably a really good idea. I just wanted to show you a comparison. There are salary studies out there, but most of those are not county tax appraisal type positions. So this is inside Utah. In 2015, Kathleen Howell in Cache County did this survey. And I don't have a lot of data, and it's 2 years old, but just to show how you compared at the time. Statewide, it looks like your certified general wage at the time was lower than the statewide average. I understand that may be different now, having maybe changes made.
That's really interesting. Something's got to change. It takes 8 years of education so you can make $23 an hour.
Currently, there's a movement to try to get that changed. It's the Appraisal Foundation. It's a national oversight organization. And they're trying to get that changed. And if they do reduce it, it's going to be a little bit. We've heard that right now they're working on a draft of some changes. But it reduces, instead of a college degree, you have to have a certain set of college classes. And the amount of experience time, instead of 3 years or 2 years of experience before you're licensed, they're willing to reduce that some. But there's still going to be quite a bit of time to get this license, and with the wages that are currently out there, young people just don't want it. There's so much more to offer. So we're working on it. We're lobbying, and it looks like at the time your certified residential wage was consistent with others in similar sized counties, and your trainee salaries. And I don't think you had a licensed appraiser at the time, so I didn't have that data. Now I'm comparing you with counties that have similar kinds of parcels, the secondary residential. So Summit County, Washington County, Iron County, and Kane County. It looks like compared to those in 2015, you were also low in the certified general area, but you were also low in the certified residential. And I would say the certified residential appraiser is probably the most important for the county because they can do commercial properties. We will designate them to do tax appraisals on commercial properties if they have certified residential. So you don't have to have a certified general. It's a nice credential to have, but it's not totally necessary. And with those counties, you were right in the middle of the pack with the training. So I'm just about done. I just want to point out the obvious, some of your staffing challenges. There's a lack of an appraiser pool here in Wasatch County. And the cost of living here, I don't know if you know it or not, but we know it, it's higher than it is in Utah and Salt Lake counties or other counties where you might draw appraisers from. And so your salaries have to somewhat reflect the complexity of the property as well as the cost of living that you have here. So that's kind of a challenge. Your candidates might need to commute from another county. So you may want to think outside the box a little and consider some things like some flexible hours, maybe working 4/10 so that there aren't as many commute days, things like that. Things that are going to draw those people to want to work here. And if they don't have to move here, then the cost of living issue isn't going to be, as big a deal. And finally, obviously, we've seen statewide, the counties that have low morale, the quality of the work really suffers. And the result of that is that the revenue, the way it's spread out, the equity of who pays how much, really suffers. And the biggest way it suffers is the high-end properties are typically underassessed, and they get a break. And the lower-end properties typically pay more than their fair share. And that's the kind of thing that for the tax commission we're trying to avoid and help you. In addition, the ability to not only avoid appeals because you appraise really well, but here where you've got high-end properties and the kind of taxpayers that you have here, they're probably a little more aggressive in wanting to appeal and that kind of thing. So your ability to defend those appraisals is crucial. So I'm done. And if you have questions, then I could,
It just makes sense that if we can appraise those properties correctly, we definitely should be able to report to appraisers. Giving the value that they need to be, bringing that extra revenue.
and it's not necessarily that it's going to increase your revenue if they get them up. It's going to shift it.
Put it where it's supposed to be.
Exactly. So it's distributed a little
Because
more.
the amount is the amount, it's just
Yeah.
how it gets allocated, right?
Yeah, because of the way the tax rate system works. So if values go up, then it should shift your tax rate proportionately. But the problem is, like I said, it's where it shifts from one group of society to another group of society.
You said that the goal for a county about our size is 6, you're saying 6 full-time FTE appraisers?
That's what we're shooting for. We think
Okay.
that's a pretty conservative.
And then because of all the complexities of Wasatch County, unlike some of those other counties, should our goal be higher?
You know, in an ideal world, I'd go for 7.
Plus 7 plus the elected?
I think your recommendation was 6 plus are elected, right?
Yeah, that's what we're
We
recommending.
currently
We think
have 5.
You were doing with 5. We think if you hire one more, and we work with your office to do some coaching and look for ways to maybe utilize the tools that are available, like the building department and so forth. Maybe there are ways that we can help streamline the office. We think that that's probably a more reasonable approach to start out.
How many data collectors should we have? Is there a ratio of however many full-time you have of appraisers to data collectors?
Well,
Well, specifically given our software, which I think
Yeah, somewhat. I'm not sure data collectors are the best thing in your county, mainly because of the amount of secondary residential properties.
Because of the complexity.
It can work, but remember, the only thing that they're allowed to do is go out, measure, and sketch. They cannot consider the materials that that home is built out of, the complexity and customization of the actual construction and all that kind of stuff. They don't know how that impacts value. So when they're making judgments as to grade and condition and things like that, you really need somebody that can be on site more.
So an increase of data collectors doesn't help
I
us?
don't think so.
Okay, okay, can I go back to the full-time again?
Yeah.
The goal is 6 for a county about our size, and then plus for our elected person. But because of the complexity of our county, should we have a higher goal?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Mr. Carroll based on his experience in the past. I mean, I know you're...
Well, I think we've got a large amount of secondary residences, but we've got a lot of them are in the city limits. They're just homes owned by somebody that also owns a home someplace else. Up in the Jordanelle Basin is the only real complex area we got. So I don't know if that number you have is really reflective of the type of properties.
It may not be.
Because we've got a lot of secondary residents that their assessor has went through and found out where they live and classified them as
See,
such.
our
So you think
approach-
6 plus
A lot of the counties, if you live in the city limits, they don't even worry about the secondary residents unless it's brought to their attention.
So you think 6 plus buff is enough?
Yeah. But I think, like Craig says, maybe we ought to offer more training to some of them appraisers dealing with these more complex properties.